All right.
Good evening. I'm Mayor Dean Brookie, and I'd like to welcome you to this December 15th, 2020 regular City Council meeting. It's the last regular council meeting of 2020. With that, may we have a roll call, please?
Somebody's on mute.
Pardon me. Councilor Patine.
Here.
Councilor Noseworthy.
Present.
Councilor Youssef.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baxter.
Present.
Mayor Brookie.
Present. Thank you, Amy. And with that, I'd like to ask Council to identify any actual or perceived conflicts of interest for any of the items that are on the agenda this evening. Seeing none and hearing none, we'll move on to public participation. Public participation is intended to receive comment from our constituents related to any item that's not otherwise on the agenda this evening. If so, hold your comments for that particular item. With the ideas that we would have each participant have 3 minutes to talk about whatever they're feeling, and you will have about 2.5 minutes into it, you will be receiving a little high sign to say politely to wrap up your comments. And with that, the way to dial into the public participation is to raise your hand if you're on Zoom, attending this meeting via Zoom, or if you're attending via a phone, dial *9, and you will be perceived by our moderator and invited into our discussion. So with that, Mitchell, do we have any public participation, folks?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Happy holidays, everybody. We do have someone who has raised their hand. They have called in. Phone number ending in 2752. Please unmute yourself pressing *6, and you have 3 minutes after you give us your first and last name and your address for the record.
Thank you, Mitchell. This is Sweetie Marbury. I'm at 2256 West 2nd Avenue. I'm calling in tonight to talk about the water fund balances and the need for a water treatment plant. On December the 10th, the United States Drought Monitor released a map for our area. We are designated as exceptional drought. We need a new water treatment plant to get the water out of Lake Nighthorse. The need for water storage dates back over 75 years, and now we have that storage. In the 70s, the city voted to secure the water rights in the new reservoir. In 2005, the city council put a down payment for securing the water rights. In 2012, the city voted to pay for the water rights. The former city councils raised water rates to play catch-up from years of underfunding the water account. The 2020 census will reveal an increase in the city and the county population, which all puts a stress on the old plant. The water fund balance is a savings account for good planning for the next water treatment plant. The current plant is over 65 years old, and our sweet employees keep it functioning somehow. The water fund means the city will have the money to pay for expenses and pay for the planning for a new water plant. The Animas La Plata project water was meant to be used. We have water rights. We have a growing population. We need to continue that planning for a new plant, and it all takes time. There will be more annexation. There will be more development within the city, and water restrictions probably will happen in the future. We are in a drought. It's happening now. The water fund balance gives me great comfort knowing the city will have the money to buy the land for a new site. A citizen has said, refund money from the water account. That statement is terribly short-sighted and demonstrates a real lack of understanding in the needs for the city. The fund balance to me is like buying a house and having a down payment to pay for that house. Good planning is slow and steady. Good design takes time. Our staff is very methodical. I'm encouraging the City Council to keep that planning going, keep the momentum going for a new water treatment plant for our very near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Marbury. Appreciate it. And any other commenters this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we do have someone else who has raised their hand. So a quick reminder for anybody else who's attending this meeting via Zoom, if you are here to speak during public participation, please utilize the raise hand function at this time. Susan, I have invited you to speak. Please unmute yourself, give us your first and last name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Susan Ellery here. I wanted to comment. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm holding my spacebar down vigorously. So I wanted to comment on Lake Nighthorse use because earlier there was a meeting between a group of people that I am loosely connected with that have been advocating since Lake Nighthorse's use became sort of real for non-motorized user opportunities. Currently, non-motorized use is limited to 2 weekdays. And I found this year that for those of us who are employed and have to work on weekdays, that pretty well meant I couldn't enjoy going out on the Nighthorse on my stand-up paddleboard, because no way do I want to ride wakes of motorized vehicles, nor do I want to hear them. So what I'm asking you for is to consider directing Parks and Rec to distribute a fairer share of the dedicated time to non-motorized use, and that we'd like some weekend time. I am suggesting that an appropriate thing would be Sunday mornings, 7 a.m. to noon. As most of you who are, if you're water users, and particularly with the lake there, you know that mornings are preferable for non-motorized use because of the wind patterns. They whip up in the afternoon and evenings, and they can actually be dangerous. You can't get back to shore. I bought a punch pass this year. I used it once because I was stuck at work on Mondays and Wednesdays, and so I simply couldn't make use of it. I had good intentions. And I think that what I've heard, and of course it's total rumor, but it can be validated by staff, the number of annual passes and punch passes like what I bought that were registered to non-motorized users, if they track that info, should be significant. I mean, on the one day that I used my pass, it was packed with SUPs, kayaks, and fisher people. So when Parks and Rec met with this group that's been advocating on behalf of non-motorized use recently, they offered up a crumb, basically. They said, hey, you could have 7 to 10 a.m. on Friday mornings.
Susan, you've got about 30 seconds. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Yeah.
And that's a nice offering, but it's insufficient. For one thing, it doesn't give you enough time to get on and off the lake without running into conflicts with the motorized people at the ramp. And I really think a half day, in my mind, that's 7 a.m. to noon would be appropriate. And I'd really like to see you grant Sundays, 7 to noon for the non-motorized people. So then we'd have 3 days of use. Well, 2.5. Thank you. Thank you all, by the way. Merry Christmas.
Thanks for being engaged, as usual. Thanks. And Mitchell, do we have another participant?
Nobody else has raised their hand yet. Reminder, if you are here for public participation, please utilize the raise hand function in Zoom at this time, please. Mayor, I'm not seeing anybody else raise their hand.
Thank you so much. And I might add, nice hat. Goes well with your earphones. So with that, we'll move on to proclamations and presentations. Item 5.1, which is Durango High School football state champions. Actually, I requested a proclamation be created after one of the good news features that was in the Herald in our community, amongst all the other bad news that's been surrounding us lately. So I'm very happy to read this proclamation, and it reads a little bit like a sportscaster, but we'll make it through it. And then I'd like to have our athletic director, coach, and maybe some of those awesome senior team members of our football team speak as soon as I'm done. So this is proclamation for Durango High School Football Day. Whereas the Durango High School football team has secured the 2020 Colorado High School Activities Association Class 3A State Football Championship title. And whereas on December 5th, 2020, the number 3 Durango Demons went head-to-head with the number 1 Roosevelt High School Rough Riders of Johnstown, Colorado, at the Colorado State University Pueblo Neta and Eddie DeRose Thunderbolt Stadium. And whereas a 14-14 tie at halftime, the Durango Demons went on to win the 3A championship 21-14. And whereas it is the Durango High School football team's first state championship since 1954, when it tied Lamar 7-7 in the Class A championship. And whereas the 2020 season presented many challenges due to COVID-19 pandemic, which required players and families to take precautions and make sacrifices to ensure a safe, successful season. And whereas all 40 players on the team rose to the occasion, showing dedication and commitment to making it to the state championship. And whereas the city of Durango is tremendously proud of and grateful to have the entire team, coaches, and athletic staff representing our community. And now, therefore, I, Dean Brookie, Mayor of Durango, Colorado, do hereby proclaim December 5th, 2020 as Durango High School Football Day in the city of Durango, and encourage our citizens to join me in honoring the Demons football team on their accomplishment. Thank you, Dean Brookie, Mayor. With that, I believe we have, and Mitchell, if you can invite in Athletic Director Ryan Knorr, and perhaps Coach Dave Vaught, and perhaps some members of the team that can be introduced by the coaches.
So I'll kind of start off. I'm the District Athletic Director, Ryan Knorr. First, I'd like to thank you all for having Coach Vogt and I and allowing us to receive this amazing honor. Very, very cool for the whole school, and especially for our boys who put everything on the line for this season. I'd like to take a quick second to speak to mental health of our high school students right now, especially with remote learning. Our students are struggling to connect with one another and establish all that our typical hidden curriculum of socialization and self-worth, self-esteem kind of establishes. With that, now more than ever, I think the importance of being able to participate in activities and athletics is even more heightened, and those opportunities to do so. So with that, I'd like to thank our superintendent, Dan Snowberger, Principal John Hurl, for kind of trusting us and giving us just the chance to compete this year. And with that chance, our boys and our coaches took full advantage of it. I'd also like to thank the entire city. I don't know if anybody had a chance to be at the parade and the send-off that took place in the city down Main Street, but pulling out of our parking lot just gave me chills up and down my spine. And it wasn't that we were going to state, it was that the entire, we being the football team, it was the entire city of Durango was taking us to state and there by our sides to lead us out. And that feeling of support and in a time like this where it matters more than ever, it was just amazing. So to all the people in Denver Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, the County Sheriff, Fire Department, I felt like we had the SWAT team out there. It was unbelievable. So to be a part of a community that backs a team like this in a time like this is hard to put words to. But I want to hand it over to our head coach, Coach Vogt, to say a few words as well. But thank you so much for this honor.
And again, I'll just reiterate that how lucky we are to be in a town where everybody supports us. And in a normal year, we would have packed the stands and the community would have been able to follow us a lot closer. But the kids really felt the love from everybody. I had a kid yesterday just say he went out and was doing his mountain biking, and somebody offered to pay for him, just because we won the state championship. And it's just it's just been a real blessing to have the support from the community. And then I just want to say one other thing is this experience has just been amazing. To have the kids work so hard for 4 years and for it to finally pay off and to win a state championship is just, it's one of the best feelings that I've ever had. And to be there with the kids and to hug a kid after the game and tell them that you love them and that you've supported them and you're proud of them, and for them to say it back to you, it's just an amazing feeling. And so again, thank you, community, and the health officials for supporting us and allowing us to continue this season, because it did mean a lot for the kids to get out there and to participate and to play a sport and to be together. It just meant the world to the kids. So again, thank you all so much for all the support you've given us and in this program.
Thank you so much, Coach, and Athletic Director Nord and Coach Vogt. I'm sorry to keep messing that up, but thanks so much for everything you're doing for the kids, and we're really proud of them. And thanks for joining us tonight to celebrate. So
thank you, guys.
Go Demons. Thanks so much, you guys.
Yeah, I wish we could. This is the time when we all get in front of the dais and take a picture with all those athletes. And so sorry to miss out on that opportunity, but tell them we're with them. And Ryan, I'm sure you got at least a couple more sports lined up to do the same thing later in the year. So I appreciate that. Take care, and thanks so much. And with that, I might also give a shout out to Superintendent Snowberger. Dan Snowberger was involved in an accident, we understand, yesterday. He and his wife, a very severe auto wreck on Highway 160. They've been moved to Denver for medical treatment, and our hearts go out to them this evening as well. As you might recall, they were involved similarly in an accident 2 years ago, and Dan's wife has been recovering during this entire 2-year period. So it's really unfortunate to have a repeat experience for both of them. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is intended for those items that are typically routine or non-controversial in nature. And we will have a reading of the consent agenda, and then I'll ask counselors if they would like to remove any item from the consent agenda to be acted on individually. With that, Amy, may we have a reading of the consent agenda?
Items 6.1 through 6.4 are approval of the minutes. 6.1, the City Council regular meeting of December 1, 2020. 6.2, the City Council special study session of December 1, 2020. 6.3, the special council meeting of December 23rd, 2020. And 6.4, the City Council regular meeting of November 17th, 2020. Items 6.5 through 6.8 are discussion and possible action items. 6.5 concerns approval of the 2021 pay and classification plans. 6.6 concerns Resolution R 2020-46, accepting the Cummins Addition annexation petition and setting a public hearing for the annexation, initial zoning, and conceptual plan development review for January 19, 2021. Item 6.7 concerns Resolution R 2020-47, accepting the 26918 South Highway 160 annexation petition and setting a public hearing for the annexation, initial zoning, and conceptual plan development review for January 19, 2021. 6.8 concerns Resolution R 2020-48, authorizing additional appropriations to the Open Space, Parks, and Trails Fund and the General Fund for the Resilient Communities Program Grant Award. 6.9 through 6.12 are requests for public hearings with a proposed date of January 5th, 2021. 6.9 is to consider a proposed ordinance to amend the speed limit on Animas View Drive. 6.10 is to consider amendments to the Twin Buttes 4th Conceptual Development Plan and to the City of Durango Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map. 6.11 is to consider the Twin Buttes Parcel K preliminary minor subdivision. 6.12 is to consider the Twin Buttes Parcel M preliminary minor subdivision. Items 6.3 through 6.15 are final approval of ordinances. 6.13 is ordinance O 2020-18 for purposes of amending the zoning of real property located within the city of Durango, Colorado, pursuant to Chapter 27, Section 6-3-2-3 and 2-1-2-6 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Durango and declaring an effective date, the Island View rezone. 6.14 is Ordinance O 2020-19, approving the 2021 operating expenditures. And 6.15 is Ordinance O 2020-20, approving the 2021 capital expenditures.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Is there any member of council that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
So moved.
Was that Kim on the second?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. May we have a roll call, please, Ms. Phillips?
Mayor Pro Tem Baxter,
Yes.
Councilor Bettine,
Yes.
Councilor Noseworthy,
Yes.
Councilor Youssef,
Yes.
and Mayor Brookie.
Yes, thank you so much. Moving forward, at this point, I do want to make an announcement that I will be making a few comments about the current status of the COVID outbreak in our community slightly later in the agenda under reports and actions. So if you're interested in that particular topic, please stay tuned. Our agenda is will be fairly active this evening, but we'll move on and get through it. And we have no legislative and policy related hearings this evening, nor any quasi-judicial hearings, and no items from the city attorney, and no introduction of ordinances. So we move to item 12 on our agenda, which is 12.1.1, discussion and possible action concerning a resolution supporting the proposed donation of the 12.2 acre web parcel for purposes of extending the Smart 160 trail through Grandview. May we have a staff report from Kevin Hall, I believe that would be.
Good evening, Mayor Brookie and councilors. This is an exciting one. Happy to be before you tonight to share what I think a lot of us would consider great news, and also a very generous offer from the Webb family. The Webb family has owned the Webb Ranch south of town here since the 1960s. They, for a number of years, have been working with CDOT very closely on the realignment of Highway 550 into 160. We've been in contact with Mr. Webb, who is a partner with Martha Cotino, his sister, on the Webb Ranch. And we've talked to Chris Webb on and off over the years while he's been working with CDOT, talking about the connection of the Smart 160 trail from Three Springs over to the Animas River Trail near Escalante Drive. And Mr. Webb has always been clear that he supported the trail, wants to participate in the trail extension, but he was clear that he wanted to make sure that his work with CDOT was complete before that occurred. Well, as you know, the CDOT road project is moving ahead. And Mr. Webb contacted us earlier this year and said, hey, I'm ready to talk to you about the trail. And in addition to that, I'd like to just donate the 12 acres, the parcel on the other side of the highway, to the city for the purposes of trail or other needs you might have for the trail. So with that, we've gone to the Natural Lands Board and got their support. We sent, Parks and Rec sent a letter thanking the Webbs back last month. I have been working with the city attorney on not only an environmental assessment of the property, but also working through the title documents to make sure that there's going to be a clear title and we can use the property effectively. After that due diligence, there was nothing of concern identified. We're still working through a couple of the pieces with the title company and hope to close next Tuesday. We felt it was very important to bring it to council to ask for your support for acceptance of the donation. With the property in city ownership, we'll be able to move forward with the trail design through that parcel, as well as the parcel we acquired from the Garlicks a couple of years ago. There's one remaining private owner in the corridor that we have been in communication with over the years as well. He's always expressed interest for the project and will be interested in working through negotiating a trail corridor through his properties as well. La Plata County, as well as the BLM, also have some ownership through there that we will need to finalize. Those have been conversations that have been ongoing for years. The Parks and Rec Department in the proposed 2021 budget has funds available to do the design work through this corridor. So, we've been hearing for a number of years the desire to get that trail connected, and it really feels like we can take this momentum on the web acquisition and move the project forward in a meaningful way in 2021. The city's investment in this property was a little over $3,200. The value for tax purposes for the Webb's donation is $293,000. It's a very generous offer from the Webb's. The Webb's have been fabulous to work with and a great member of the community, and really look forward to closing this deal. And we're looking for the council's support by way of a resolution that's attached to your agenda doc. If you like, for purposes of the community, I'm happy to share just a couple of quick photos of the property that I think would benefit the presentation. Bear with me for one moment. So the highlighted property in red is where the 12 acres lies. It's just adjacent to Highway 160. Wilson Gulch parallels the road. The property itself it's a steep hillside. It's not a high value environment. The railroad corridor has come through there in the past. There's utilities in the corridor. The area between the highway and the property, though, has Wilson Gulch, which is quite lovely, actually. If you're down there, there's actually a little waterfall down there. It's really a nice little corridor along the road. On the hillside, though, it is a little more denuded and has been disturbed over the years. Here's a view from up on the Farmington Hill connection, as well as from the access onto the bridges over to Grandview as well. So a little bit of hillside there, but you can see the railroad corridor. The railroad corridor is likely to be at least a portion of where the trail will land. We'll have to work with the neighboring property owner to assure that it aligns on his property the way he needs it to as well. So with that, I guess as staff would ask your consideration of the attached resolution, and certainly available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin?
I just was wondering if we had a resolution number, Dirk.
Yeah, I was going to ask Dirk if it's appropriate to take action, and if so, the resolution number.
Yes, it is, I think, ready for action, and it is R 2020-49.
Okay. With that, is there any further questions of staff regarding this generous donation?
I think it's wonderful, and the Natural Lands Board did discuss it in their last meeting and also sent a thank you letter to the Webb Ranch owners. And so I think this is a great situation for us to be able to connect Three Springs into our trail system.
And I'll just add, it's a wonderful donation from the Webb family. Thank you.
Yes, please send it from all of City Council. What a great contribution, and this will provide such value for our residents to be able to extend all the way out to Three Springs. It's going to be just lovely for that connectivity.
I concur, and I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-49.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. I might just say that for those folks that are listening in, this is one of the missing links that has kept us from completing that section of the trail. And now we, with this generous donation, we can make that happen. And I'm looking forward to riding my bike out to Three Springs as soon as possible. So with that, it's been moved and seconded. May we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Bettine,
Yes.
Counselor Noseworthy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baxter,
Yes.
and Mayor Brookie.
Yes, thank you so much. With that, we move on to agenda item 12.1.2, which is discussion and possible action concerning a resolution supporting use of joint sales tax funding in excess of funds previously appropriated by La Plata County for purposes of completing design and engineering services associated with the proposed road section. I lost it, cut out here for one moment, but I believe that's the proposed road section of County Road 251. With that, can we have a presentation by probably Kevin Hall once again?
Thank you, Mayor Brookie, councilors. Again, Kevin Hall, Assistant City Manager. This one might not be as good, quite the feel good as the previous agenda item, but we felt it was really critical to bring it forward. So as you know, last year we worked with La Plata County on projects that would be funded through the joint sales tax. There was mutual agreement to share in the cost of doing final design of County Road 251, which is essentially 32nd Street from Holly Avenue east to County Road 250, or East Animas Drive as it's known in the city. And at that time, the discussion was about getting the design work done so that we can talk about what it'll take to get it funded for construction. As you know, that section of road does not meet city standards. It hardly meets a county road standard. A lot of bicyclists and pedestrians use that. The corridor, particularly on the south side of County Road 251, is developing with East Animas Village, with Lumion Apartments. The new fire station is over there. And it has been identified as a priority by council and even previous councils to try to bring that up to standard. The design services request for proposal went out this fall. In November, we received 2 proposals. One was by the firm that actually did the earlier design work in 2014 on that section of road, partial design. And ultimately, they were seen as the preferred firm to do the additional work necessary to bring it up to a city road standard design, so we could discuss what the engineer's estimate of construction costs would be, as well as see if we can identify funding sources to actually move the project forward. When we worked with La Plata County on the cost share, at that time, there was an estimation of approximately $100,000 to do all of the engineering services to bring the road design forward. And with that, we went and did the RFPs this fall. The design proposals that came in, the 2 that came in, the low bid came in at $139,920. The second one was in the range of $198,000. The city engineer went to great measures to discuss with the low bidder whether there was ways to bring the project as proposed, as scoped within budget. There was opportunities to probably shave some dollars off of the 139.92, with the expectation though that those numbers would come back at some point in time, where we would need to go back and get the additional work done. It was a recommendation of the city engineer. We try to keep the proposal whole. And so what that means is we're coming up short on budget. As you might remember from our joint sales tax meeting just earlier this fall, because of the timing of everything, there was an agreement to move the $100,000 essentially into the 2021 budget, but we're short $39,920. I did speak with the county manager last week prior to preparing the agenda docs. He spoke with the commissioners who were supportive of doing similar to what we've done in the past, which would be a cost share on that additional $39,920. it will require a formal action on the part of La Plata County in order to move additional joint sales tax dollars into the budget to do the project. If there's support for doing so by the council and formal action by the county commissioners, we can initiate the work immediately upon 2021 or when the county completes their necessary appropriation. It's a 4-month project to get that squared away, get the design documents and the engineer's estimates resolved. That would probably be early April into May, which actually lines up pretty well for the budget discussion as to whether there's interest, desire, or ability to fund construction going into the 2022 cycle for capital projects. So what we've done in the past when this type of scenario played itself out with county and joint sales tax, we've used resolutions to kind of affirm the city's position on the matter, and then we would provide that to the county so that they would be, assured that the city council's position on the matter. So with that, there is a resolution here asking for your support for the additional funding that we would provide to the county if you in fact do choose to support it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. That was very thorough. And any questions of council regarding this particular approximately $39,000 appropriation?
I don't really have a question. I have a comment. I'm very happy that we are moving forward with this, and that if we choose today to accept this resolution to pass it, that we will then put it in the hands of the Board of County Commissioners to do the same, and we can move forward with it. Because that area, for me, I ride my bike there a lot, and it's not as safe as it could be. I think it would be a great addition to the safety on 32nd Street. And since we have the senior housing and other residents going in there, and as Kevin mentioned, the new fire station, I think that makes it even that much more important that we have safety in that area. So I'm very excited about us moving forward on this. And Dirk, would that be resolution 2020?
Oh, could I just add a comment?
Yeah, I just want to ask, would that be resolution 2020-50?
Yes, it's 50.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Noseworthy.
Thank you. I also think it's important to note that the county commissioners have directed the county manager to put significant amount of funding into implementing the outcome of this design. And I know that we as a city council have also agreed to eventually do that. So that's something we're going to have to look at in an upcoming budget once we get our design feedback as well.
And I would just add that this is such a critically important area. It's really dangerous for bikers and walkers. And so I would love to see some improvements on this road. Connectivity, bikeability, walkability, it's everything that we're working towards. So it's really great to see this moving forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I might just say that this is another one of those missing links. So many citizens, both county and city citizens, think that this road does belong to the city of Durango, so we should be doing something about it. It does not currently belong to the city. That's that link between Holly and County Road 250, which is highly unimproved, no shoulders and so forth. So it's a joint effort between the city and the county to ultimately transfer that ownership of that road to become a city road. And these improvements are the design being considered is to improve it to city standards so that the city can accept it and be responsible for that street for now on. So
Mayor, I was just going to add to your comments too. I think our county commissioners, a couple of our outgoing county commissioners are going to be very happy to see this, probably, at least this design part before their term ends.
We've been talking about it for a long time, and thank you for that, Melissa. And thanks for Julie and Gwen and their persistence in making this thing happen. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution as noted by Dirk.
I'll move.
That we approve the resolution 2020-50 recommending support to La Plata County for appropriation of an additional $39,920 of joint sales tax funds for the CR 251 Road Design and Engineering Series Services Partnership Project.
Well said. Do we have a second?
Second.
I heard a second. Maybe we have a roll call, please.
Councilor Noseworthy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baxter?
Yes.
Counselor Bettine,
Yes.
Counselor Youssef,
Yes.
Mayor Brookie.
Yes, thank you so much. And we'll move on to 12.2, which is a number of financial items, beginning with 12.2.1, a discussion and possible action to consider a resolution adopting the 2021 annual capital budget for the city of Durango. With that, I believe Devin Schmidt will give us a short presentation regarding that. Or
Yes,
perhaps
good
our new
evening.
financial director.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I am Devin Schmidt, the Budget and Strategic Planning Manager for the City of Durango. The first item that we will be discussing is 12.2.1, and this is discussion and possible action to consider a resolution adopting the 2021 annual capital budget for the City of Durango. The city manager's proposed budget for 2021 has been discussed, and it's been brought to city council, as well as a public hearing on December 1st to allow public participation and input. Per council's direction, certain amendments have been made to estimated revenues and proposed expenditures, as well as some amendments and recommendations by staff. As a result of better information obtained since the bid budget was originally proposed. During reconciliation, a list of items were reviewed by City Council, and the attached resolution has incorporated all of the amendments, both staff and City Council, as discussed with the City Council at budget reconciliation. Any changes or amendments to the proposed budget are summarized below, in addition to the proposed changes, and have been incorporated in the proposed budget. So the fiscal impact will authorize the spending in the amount of $29,155,654 in the Capital Improvement Fund. So at this time, I can take questions on this resolution and any discussion.
Thank you, Devin. And any questions of Devin from council?
I just want to, Devin, if I may, first of all, give a huge shout out of thanks to everyone for the improvements on this. On the capital improvement, I did want to just make certain that we're all on the same page. When we were talking about the 2015 and the Memorial Bridge and the crossing there, the proposed underpass, we did discuss that we would be looking at both building a parallel bridge for the design and also using the existing Memorial Bridge, and we got that assurance. So I did want to just come back and remind everyone of that, what we'll be seeing. And then also two other items. I noted that in the 2019, we've talked about the possibly coming back in a few months with an additional CIP project that we might be doing to address either an alley or some other area. So while we're approving it, we might be coming back with an additional expense. And then in the water areas, there may be some additional CIPs that might be needing to be looked at possibly. So I just wanted to, clarify that for the record, that those are some of the changes that we may be looking at.
Yes,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Councilor Nosworthy. Yeah, anything can happen. Yeah, as time needs. Any other questions or comments? That was a good one. And if not, I'd entertain a motion, and I believe that would be resolution 2020-51, if I'm counting correctly.
That's correct.
It would be a motion to approve the budget resolution for the capital 2021 budget for the city of Durango in the 2021 budget document.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. May we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Bettine,
Yes.
Counselor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Nosworthy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baxter,
Yes.
Mayor Brookie.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll move to 12.2.2, which is a discussion and possible action to consider a resolution adopting the 2021 annual operating budget for the city of Durango. Again, Devin, can you enlighten us?
Absolutely. So again, the operating budget has followed the same process as the capital budget, where it's been reviewed and discussed by City Council. Expenditures that were changed between proposed and reconciliation and now at adoption are incorporated, incorporating City Council and staff's amendments to the budget. And so what the fiscal impact would be for the operating budget authorizes a spending in the amount of $81,409,322 for the operating funds for the city of Durango. And so I can take any questions on the operating funds if council has any.
Again, councilors, any questions?
No, but I just want to make a point again. Just again, Devin, a huge thanks to you in particular for the vast improvements over the budget process from last year. I'm also wanting the public to be aware that we will be going to OpenGov in this coming year, and I think that'll be a chance for everyone to see the expenditures as they're being paid. So I'm really thrilled about that. I did want to say that with Jose and Cynthia, we have talked about the need to address the interfund transfers and the cost allocation plans, and that'll be coming up. So again, there'll be some changes there. That the SURF balance fund is probably too high, and that Jose will be, the city manager will be coming back with some recommendations for possible reduction in that balance. And then the water fund balance at $14 million, that was for projects, capital improvement projects previously approved that had been identified by the staff as needing to take place and are not taking place because we can't get them done in this year, leaving a pretty high fund balance. So again, I remember Jose saying that he'll be looking at that and coming back to us council at some date with revisions to those balances.
That is correct. We will have some revisions that we will come back to and updates. And while I have this opportunity, I do want to thank Devin very much for your work in putting this budget together. Thank you very much. And then also the entire staff, the directors with the organization, thank you so much for being patient with me, being flexible, and being on top of it. So thank you all very much. Total team effort. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jose, for being a quick learner. Yeah. And
can I just add to Mayor, I wanted to commend staff, Jose and Devin. What a wonderfully improved process from past processes. It was really nice that we were able to start with corrected CAFR balances and fund balances after we approved the amended and corrected budget in April. And then since then, all the steps that you've taken to make this budget more clear for the community, separating out the funds and just really taking all the steps that you were able to do to make it more clear. I know we have more room to continue to grow, but this process was so much smoother and the way it should be. So I really, really appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you, Councilor Youssef. With that, it's the recommendation of the city manager that City Council by motion approve the budget resolution for the operating 2021 budget for the city of Durango in the 2021 budget document.
And I would move that we approve resolution 2020-52, which is the one you just referred to, Dean.
Thank you.
Second.
I have here a motion and a second, and may I have a roll call, please?
Councilor Noseworthy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baxter?
Yes.
Councilor Bettine?
Yes.
Councilor Youssef?
Yes.
And Mayor Brookie?
Yes, thank you so much. I might add to the public as well, these are not public hearings. We have had previous public hearings on these issues. And so this is just adopting the resolutions that have been previously discussed and presented to council and taking formal action on them this evening. Thank you. And we'll move on to 12.2.3, which is a presentation regarding business relief topics related to COVID. And I believe the city manager, Jose Madrigal, is going to.
I'll start off with it. Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Before I hand it off to Devin, I just want to talk a little bit about kind of where we're at and what we came to this point. We have been moving in kind of a fluid manner, I think is a good way of saying it. Over these past few weeks, the council did at our last council meeting, kind of direct staff to turn over every stone and see what we could do to provide some meaningful relief to the businesses. Here are some options and opportunities that we have. We have kind of taken a look at some of those items, and in some parts with the CARES funding, we'll have a more formal presentation on that. But other areas like the utility bill, rebate, forgiveness, those are just areas that we took a look at and are presenting to council to see if that's something that has interest and if you would like to move forward on that area. But just want to, again, appreciate Devin for her work, Dirk for helping us out, Levi, Jared, the finance staff, Cynthia, and the directors of just kind of looking at everything that we can do to put our heads together to make a good team effort for the community. And Kevin and Amber, again, also appreciate their insight as well. So with that, I'll hand it off to Devin.
Thank you, Jose. Jose, I just wanted to ask what possible action, it's not slated for particular action, but you're trying to get concurrence from council to give staff guidance this evening, or?
Yes, sir, that's a good question. So we will have an action item to, and that's on the coronavirus relief fund to actually appropriate the funding. So that one would be an action. The utility bill area really would be does the council, want us to continue to move forward with this? Is that something that they like to look forward to? I think there's a couple ways. If it's something comfortable in which you'd authorize city manager to move forward and go with, or bring back a formal proposal, I think that one's going to have a little bit more fluidity in kind of that direction. But we will have action items specifically on the CARES funding to appropriate that funding so that we can get those checks out to the businesses by Friday.
Excellent. Thank you so much. With that, Devin, thanks for holding.
Not a problem. It gave me a second to get my tech in gear. So again, I'm Devin Schmidt. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Jose gave a great start up of what the City of Durango business assistance programs that we're looking at are. And so I will run through these for you all somewhat quickly. So,
Devin, one quick second, and it just came to mind, and I apologize. The communication staff, Mitchell, Tamara, Victor, and Tom, big shout out to them in their outreach and getting us on the social media sites and on that portion of getting this information out there. So I completely forgot, and that's my fault, but I wanted to make sure that they got a complete big shout out for that because they really have helped us get the word out. So thank you all.
So the programs that are currently active under the business assistance relief programs is the Durango Business Relief Fund, and I'll talk into these in a little bit more detail. The restaurant delivery fee reimbursement, so anything greater than 15%, and I'll discuss that one as well. And then utility bill forgiveness is an area where we do have an agenda document. We'll be discussing with council to see if there's an appetite for that potential option. So starting with the Business Relief Fund, after the City of Durango reviewed its expenses and reached out to community partners, the city has been deploying the remaining funds to assist with the Community Foundation and the business relief. So to break that down a little bit further, and you'll see here that this balance has increased. And that is because the CARES Act funding we are in the process of receiving from the county includes an additional $300,000 that we could deploy to businesses. So starting with the City of Durango internal expenses, these are related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so some of these include a PR campaign. And so that's some area where the city will be using the funds. The second component of that is the Community Foundation. And so that's nonprofits that pivoted and provided emergency services during the pandemic and are continuing to. And then we have the City of Durango Business Relief Fund. And so the way this is happening is we're doing a round one, and staff has been working diligently to get through these applications so that, as Jose mentioned, we can deploy the first cut checks to businesses on Friday, December 18th. The county did distribute additional $300,000 to the city of their CARES Act funding. And so we took $100,000 of that and added it to this bucket because the program has been so popular. The second part of that is the second round, and this is opened up now to City of Durango applicants as well as La Plata County businesses. And so there'll be $200,000 available in this bucket. I had just sent out the broadcast, and yes, thank you to the PIOs for helping with that as well, because that's been huge. So I just sent that out, and we will accept applications for that program and do the same process where we're trying to turn this checks out to businesses rather quickly so they can receive that support. So as I mentioned, this is the first round. And so we have all of the applications. They were due on December 9th, and we are going to be cutting checks and distributing those out to businesses on Friday. And then the second timeline that we have here is the application was posted today. Applications will be due December 21st, and then we will disperse the funds on December 30th. And both of these follow the same reporting measures since it's all CARES Act money. And before I move on to the restaurant delivery fee, I'll take a quick pause here to see if there's any questions or comments from council.
Devin, will any business that was denied in the first round, will they automatically be added in? Is there to the second round, or the balance between county and city businesses is not clear to me?
Sure, no problem. That's a great question. So in the second round, no business will receive more than the first round. So there's going to be a cap on that. And we did put together some criteria. So what we were looking at was loss of revenue. We were looking at if they were forced to close based on, or if they reduced capacity based on the restrictions. We also looked at if they're in the retail, restaurant, or tourism industry, since from what we've seen, those areas have been impacted significantly. And they also need to fall in the small business category. And so those were some of the metrics that we were looking at, and we'll use the same metrics as we go through the county and the city funds. So the good thing about this is if any businesses miss that first deadline, they'll be put into this second round of applications as well. So there is some really good opportunity. Did that answer your question?
That's helpful. I also wanted to clarify, because I received calls this past week. Would a sole proprietor be eligible for this? For example, a massage therapist who's seen a decline in services and revenue, but maybe not the 25%.
Yep. So it's based on a scoring criteria. So you receive the most points for your revenue losses. But yeah, a sole proprietor, a nonprofit, a 501c3, a 501(c)(3), all of those are eligible to apply.
Thank you.
Devin, can you tell us how many applications we had for this first round so far?
Yeah, absolutely. We had 173.
Wow. Okay.
So what that's telling me is that some businesses will not get funding.
Possibly. What we're looking to do is potentially look at either a tiered approach where the businesses that scored higher and have a greater need would get a larger portion of the funding. The other option that we're looking at is really just splitting it and sending it out so that everybody gets a portion of it. So we're, like I mentioned, we're working long hours and trying to get this information out, and we'll certainly work with Jose and Cynthia to determine what works best. And then, some of the businesses, because this isn't their daily processes, we're missing some information. And so we're going to give them the option to try and cure their applications in this second round.
And the amounts for the second round will be the same, up to $15,000 grants?
Correct. But no one in the second round will receive more than the first round.
Okay.
So if we end up splitting the first round equally among those who applied and qualified, then that second round will not be able to get more than that.
And Devin, I know you guys are working so hard to get this just program to review ththese applications and get the money appropriated. So I know you probably have no time, but it would be very interesting to know kind of when there is time, what type of primary business was applying for this grant, or if there's a way to just kind of analyze the program itself and what type of businesses are really showing the greatest need. It appears that there's quite a few of them at 173, but it's just curious about that type of analysis of the data behind it.
Yeah, we could certainly supply that. So it's absolutely restaurants, it's bars, it's retail. There's hair salons, massage. Then there's some nonprofits in there as well. So it's a pretty diverse group of applicants.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Devin, and if we could just, for the public, just to restate those two, the bucket one and bucket two, the additional $200,000 that's coming from the county being awarded to us as additional, based on the number of requests that we had. They gave us a little more to add to our original amount, which was 600 and how much?
So the original amount we were looking to deploy was 520,000.
Right.
And so we added an additional 100,000 of the money that the county distributed to the city. And then we will be offering 200,000 to county and city businesses. And so once again, for the public, that timeline for this second round application, it's posted right now. It's on our website. You can email that to D as in David, B as in boy, R as in Richard, F as in Frank at durangogov.org. And then we'll accept applications that way until December 21st.
And Devin, those are for expenses from March to the end of December. Can you give the public the time frame for what's eligible to be reimbursed?
Sure. So options for reimbursement are rent, mortgage assistance, utility payments, employee payroll, accounts payable, payments for fixed debts, and then any other costs that they had to use to kind of adapt or repurpose their business to still be able to serve the community. And so, yeah, it's a great program because it does offer flexibility for businesses, and you can also use it just for if just loss of revenue. And so it's a good program.
Devin, I had another question regarding the community foundation for 103,000. That's for nonprofits. Are we collaborating with the community foundation to find out which nonprofits are being funded such that they aren't funded possibly twice through our City of Durango Business Relief?
Yes. So the community foundation sent us a list of the nonprofits that this money would go to. And so we were making sure that there is no duplication of benefits because since this is federal funds, that's one of the requirements is you can't have duplicated benefits. So if a business had received other federal funds and we're going to use this same money for that same purpose, it wouldn't be eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Devin. I have one last comment from the public, which was and I think it's implicit that these businesses would be compliant with the public health orders as well in order to receive these funds. And so it's an additional incentive for businesses to step up and do the right thing and help us out with enforcement as well. So I just want to make that clear to the public and anybody that's applying as well. So.
Yes, that's correct. It actually has to be legal even up to a federal level. So
all of that.
Yes.
Well, thanks for that verification. With that, it is the recommendation of the city manager that the city council by motion approve and authorize the appropriation of the coronavirus relief grant application to Colorado Department of Local Affairs. Is that right? Or is that yeah?
No, that's I think that Devin's not finished with her presentation and that one is actually 12.2.4.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So we'll go ahead with the restaurant delivery fees, and then we'll talk about, it's actually, this requires no action. So just a presentation to the public and an endorsement by city council. So thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, so for the restaurant delivery fees, the city of Durango is offering reimbursement to restaurants where the delivery fees are exceeding 15% of the total bill. This application is also available on our website. So what we're asking businesses to do that are applying for this is to provide reports from the delivery vendor that reflects that anything over the 15%. And they can do that on a monthly basis. The businesses must be designated as small businesses, and the timeline for this program will last 2 months. And so do I have any questions about this program that the city's deploying?
What is the is it December 1 to January 30th, I believe?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And so Devin, if after that time, because of the state ordinance that was put in place that we, if I understand it correctly, we could choose to enact an ordinance where the third-party deliveries cannot charge more than the 15%. We're choosing not to do this right now for expediency's sake, but we could, rather than continuing this, enact the ordinance that's part of the state effort. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's sort of my question also, which is, you know, that changed from the time that we started talking about this. And I wonder, is there any consideration to shortening that timeline and really having council make that decision to cap those fees at this point, given that state action? Because obviously this is money out of the general fund that's supporting this. And I think if we could save that money and put it to other uses, that might be a good idea. Any comments you might have on that?
I think from the staff's perspective, if that's something that council would like the staff to bring back, we definitely would do that. So it's really at the will of the council if that's something that you would like to see sooner than those 2 months.
Yeah, I think my suggestion based on what has happened would be to, you know, let's pass this tonight and then expedite shortening that program and perhaps capping those fees if that's feasible.
How quickly could an ordinance be brought before council in January?
If it's done as an emergency ordinance, it could be done, you know, fairly quickly. That's what we were talking about before. And I think most of the communities that have done this have done it via an emergency ordinance. You know, the downside of that is, of course, is that the charter says those can only be effective for 60 days. They can be renewed. So the quickest way to do this then would be through an emergency ordinance.
Which could be presented to council in what time frame?
It could come back as soon as the first meeting in January.
That's January 5th, right?
January 5th. We would need to put something together, but that could be done.
Or we could have a special meeting to approve an ordinance yet in this year?
You could, because again, the emergency ordinances don't require the same kind of, you know, multiple readings. So it's possible if council felt strongly enough about it to schedule a special meeting, you know, we could do that. We're sort of running out of year here to do that, but.
Because can you confirm again for me, Jose, that these funds are coming out of our general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I might reflect that this was an expediency measure proposed by the city manager and came up with these funds to allocate to a maximum of $40,000. We've had estimates of what this actually might run us up to $40,000, and so I'd like to see how our estimates turn out, quite honestly, in terms of is it really going to impact us to the tune of $40,000, or is it really going to be that heavily utilized? We don't know at this point, but I'm comfortable in letting it run through at least the end of the year to see what kind, and I don't know how accurate our reporting will be, if we'll even have any results by the end of the year. But I'm comfortable in letting it run that long at least, so that we have some idea of actually how big a deal this is, and how impactful it is if we leave it in its current form, where we pick it up, and then if it, you know, the emergency ordinance is one pattern, but I think we know about COVID, it's going to be around for a little longer than the 60-day emergency resolution ordinance that would be passed. So we'd have to extend that again and again, and probably 2 or 3 times. So, which is of course possible without.
Yeah.
But
I just think that, you know, that it's a change. When we were first talking about this, it was a little bit nebulous on how you would proceed. It was a new concept, and it wasn't, the state wasn't supporting it. And so now that's changed. And if you did pass something like this, I'm not suggesting we don't pass what we have in place right now, but if you did pass something where you had an emergency ordinance, then the businesses don't have to file anything, and everybody benefits from it automatically. And it doesn't cost the city any money at that point. So to me, that's wins all around. The state supporting it. You know, I think we're in a different footing than we were when we first talked about this. So that's why I'm recommending to the council. I think let's get this done for expedience, as it was suggested by the city manager, and then at the first opportunity, which I don't think wouldn't be a lot of money to wait until the first of the year. Let's pass that emergency ordinance if we can.
Councilor
I'd like to first of all applaud Jose and the team for coming up with the funds and the creative thinking. And I also want to get the money out, but I also to the businesses that need this right away. I also recognize that it's a bit cumbersome for them to come back with the paperwork. So I would like to suggest that maybe at a minimum, January 15th, we might have a sense of analysis and a plan to look at an ordinance, perhaps as early as February 1, recognizing that we're going to be dealing with takeout through the winter and probably into the spring. So we should be saving the money and just having the third party vendors cooperating with us as per the ordinance.
I'm comfortable with that. Good discussion. Thank you.
I would agree, and I want to thank Council for Bettine for bringing it up. I think it is a change, and I think Councilor Bettine said it well. I just want to second it, and I would support looking at it as soon as possible and changing it. But yes, pushing it through tonight to help is wise.
All right, Devin.
Mayor, if I can, just to make sure I circle back, do I have consensus from the council to bring this back? Because I heard the 5th and I also heard the 15th for an ordinance. So I want to know which one it is, because I know we do have a council meeting on the 5th. Is that when the council would want this to come back to review?
I would suggest the 5th. Yeah, first opportunity after the first of the year, if that works for your schedule.
Is looking to the city attorney to see if that's a possibility, given the holidays and so forth. But okay,
but we could do that. I mean, I think that some of the ordinances that I've seen are pretty complicated. I would be looking to do something pretty straightforward. You know, obviously the new state law provides for this to be in place only during emergency circumstances, and there's some limits involved. So, I mean, I think we could put something together. It would be easier, frankly, to have it ready for the second meeting, but you know, if the will of the council, we could certainly put something together and have something ready to go on the 5th. So
I don't mind waiting. I don't mind waiting. The easier path's fine with me.
The second meeting would be the 22nd. Would that be right?
I think it's earlier than that, but
I think it's the 19th.
19th, okay.
So you might need it presented to us by the 15th was my thinking, so that it could be reviewed.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, is we're trying to get packets out earlier. So effectively, if we're going to get a packet out for the 5th, we would need to get it out, you know, before Christmas. And so that's going to be a little tough. There's really only going to be about 3 working days there to get that done. So having it done for the second meeting in January, would be much less stress on staff. But
Let's go that route then, the less stress.
okay.
Okay. Any objection to that? Okay.
Seeing none, we'll move forward with that directive then, or that request. So back to Devin. Thanks. We got more good news.
Okay, so the next section that we wanted to discuss with City Council this evening is the potential of a utility bill forgiveness program. So the City of Durango could offer utility bill forgiveness for businesses that have capacity that's been limited by a public health order, and revenue decreased of more than 25% over the last year. So council is aware, we did put together some financial metrics. And so this is based on actuals, and you can see there what the total 2021 budget is and what the new projected fund balance would be. As a note, this is for every commercial water, sewer, recycle, and trash commercial business. So obviously, some of the bigger players wouldn't qualify for this program, given that their capacity hasn't been limited by a public health order. So wanted to bring this forward to council to see if there was a potential appetite for staff to look at a potential program. So it would be a similar process where businesses could fill out an application. They'd have to provide their profit and loss statement showing that 25% decline. And then the potential qualifications would be, once again, that capacity has been limited by a public health order and revenue has decreased more than 25% over the last year. And the city would designate a certain time that the utility bills could be forgiven. So I can pause at that. I don't know if Jose wants to add any additional information or if council would like to have any discussion.
The only thing I would add again is this was just kind of looking at the no stone unturned. There really isn't anything scientific with the public health capacity orders and the 25% revenue. Those are just kind of some guidelines that we kind of thought may make sense around this program. I know there's been some substantial, I wouldn't say substantial, there's been some questions in regards to how would we make this work, the process and everything else. And obviously all of that can still be figured out and we think we have ways to do so. But before we kind of went too far down the hole, we wanted to make sure that the council was agreeable to something like this, or if they had any modifications or proposals they would like us to take a look at, we definitely have the ability to do so.
Councilor Noseworthy.
Yes, thank you. I sent a note to council and to Jose this afternoon, but I did want to share this in a public forum. You know, I heard from quite a few people over the past week, those that, you know, like I said, were a massage therapist, single proprietor, really impacted, a yoga instructor trying to figure out how they're going to pay their utilities and not getting a sense that they're part of this. And so I wanted to clarify that, because I also looked at it, I'm hearing, well, it's so much, it could help, but I don't feel like there's any way I can necessarily pull all of this together in time. So one of the questions is making certain, while we're focusing on restaurants and retail, that we're not overlooking so many of the independent people in this town who are working, you know, out of their homes and doing their jobs. So I wanted to make certain there was an option for that. And then also I heard from people who have been unemployed, laid off, or their hours so reduced that where's there an opportunity for an individual here? And I recognize that there are businesses, I think of the grocery stores that probably are not impacted in this way and don't need this kind of relief. So I wondered if there was a way to make certain we're broad enough in this, in the commercial side, that we're not eliminating people who, you know, don't necessarily have the employees that we immediately think of, and that we're also looking at those that are have been laid off or have had such reduction in hours that they're just struggling to make ends meet. And the third item I want to look at is you might, instead of forgiveness, this was raised by a community member, maybe looking at a reduction going forward in how much we'll charge for, and evaluating that on a month-to-month basis. And I want to, again, acknowledge the can-do attitude and the ability to come up with something very quickly that might work for the community. I just want to make certain we're not leaving folks behind.
So Barbara, to your point, I'm wondering if we might not be able to use our utility rebate program for those specific people or those smaller, real small businesses. I think in general, it's about 20,000 a year. Maybe we could take a look at that and they could go through that process. It would show their income being reduced and they would be able to get some sort of a rebate based on that. Jose, I don't know if you know of that program, but that, because you're new, but that is something that we've always had in place, and it's rarely has been used to its full potential.
Okay, and maybe there's a PR element to this that goes out relative to that same concept that Kim's mentioning. I think, Barbara, there are some programs in place to help folks like that. Maybe we can put those in the mix as we're pushing this out the door. And I was also just going to make the comment that, this is designed to help businesses in the community that, sort of meet the similar criteria of these other, funding mechanisms. You have to find some way to say, well, the revenue's reduced or the ability to have your capacities reduced. I think we have to, and I'm glad the city utilized those mechanisms to do this. With people who are unemployed, obviously businesses can't file for unemployment for the business. And so they've got to rely on this kind of public assistance. Whereas somebody who's, unemployed, they can file for unemployment and have that be something they've been paying into for their life. It's a little different. But we do have those other programs. I think we should push them out.
I agree, and I recognize that I think that it may require that we be nimble and find some money in the general fund or whatever appropriate to add to that approximate $20,000, and then also push it out to the community as part of a PR campaign that this is available and we're aware of your need, and recognizing that even on unemployment, you're not having the same income that people had when they were employed. So I just want to raise it so that we can think of all options to help those in our community that are so seriously impacted by the downturn in the economy.
Who qualifies for the utility rebate program? Can someone tell me?
It's generally an income-based situation. So, it might need a little bit of tweaking on that part, but I think that maybe that's a better program for individuals to be applying through than, as Councilor Bettine said, this is more focused on businesses who can't get any other benefit from being unemployed, if you will.
So there could be criteria such as income under a certain amount.
Sure, I'm sure we could add an additional part to the program that incorporates the same type of things, that you lost your job because of a public health order situation, you have a decline in your income, all those, I'm sure we could formulate it very similarly.
And could we could just add to that utility rate program?
I would think that we could, some of the money that Councilor Bettine was trying to save from that previous discussion could be reallocated to this. I think as this rolls out, Jose, in his manner of not leaving any stones unturned, will be able to fortify that individual program substantially. So if we need to, so I think that's a great idea, Kim, and take that money, reallocate it after we get our ordinance in place. But as I look at these three, the things that were mentioned earlier that are not identified here is the small business aspect. So I'd like to maybe, my thought would be this is appropriate for small businesses, and Devin alluded to that the big players wouldn't be appropriate because they might have some other means of utility provision or trash pickup or whatever. But I think, the same criteria should flow from our grant program into this utility bill forgiveness program as well. It would be my only other suggestion. And that would be small business, including that, as Barbara, you mentioned, the yoga instructor, if they have a business license, then they would qualify, and as an individual business.
Yeah, Devin, would you say it aligns? I mean, it seems kind of like it aligns with the same and similar criteria, like the mayor is suggesting. I agree with what he's saying, is that it should be very similar in terms of who this is meant for, and it doesn't apply to the larger players. It really is about small business, sole proprietors, people that are small businesses in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that criteria could be established very easily. And just to clarify on the relief fund, sole proprietors are able to apply and are given consideration as well. So, but yeah, we could certainly apply that similar criteria to it. I guess my only point of clarification would be it sounds like what I'm hearing is that we would potentially move away from retail restaurants and just kind of designate small business.
I think, you know, based on your criteria, where you've got these pieces also, where it's capacity issues, it's revenue decreases and percentages, as long as those are in place, I don't think we should just focus on those sectors, in my view. That may change the math to some degree, that we have to look at it and revisit it and say, you know, that thought process seems nice, but now it costs $20 million or something. But you can tell us that, I suppose.
Yeah, I can jump back to this slide really quickly. This is this was a very quick method of determining actuals, and this was for every commercial business money that we received. So this is worst case scenario, if you will. And as I mentioned, not all of the businesses would even qualify.
Yeah, and you also mentioned, you know, a lot of the dollars there are the bigger businesses that just don't, they're not part of the qualification structure at all. And then you have the criteria qualifications. So I don't know if you've done an estimate on that. Obviously, we'll see what it is. It's a time period related thing. We can see how many people apply and go from there.
And could you also, Devin, do it, the language is important, and the process, in the sense of, rather than a rebate or even forgiveness, could you set it up so that the qualifying entities are just not charged? They pay no utility bills for the months of whatever we determine, January and then February and March. It seems that that would be a simpler way, rather than putting the money out forward and getting it back, and would also give us a sense of able to move probably a little more quickly. And then I also don't know, within I know questions were raised within the structure of the enterprise fund, that maybe we're not set up to do rebates, but we could not charge a 0% cost for a period of time for certain entities.
I think something we need to pay attention to, though, and not lose track of, is what would our revenues have been if we weren't doing this program, or if COVID weren't here, in that sense, because I don't want to lose track of year-to-year comparisons. So I think we need to have some way to track that. However we give the forgiveness or the payment that doesn't exist or whatever, I think we don't want to lose track of what our revenues would have been had we not have done this for that.
Yeah, there's got to be an accounting reason to write it off too, I would think. You almost have to record it to be able to say what you're giving.
Yes.
Yeah, it follows that we might be able to recapture some of this in a future CARES Act funding.
Yes.
Yes. So we need to track it. But the term forgiveness to me means non-payment. I mean, that's the same as you don't have to pay it. Forget your bill. So, forgiveness is I like that word somehow.
I just wanted to add just a thought for council consideration. When you look at this, and if we could keep this slide up, this is a good one. You know, with this, and if we're just looking at the commercial, then we still have, $13.4 million water balance. And, I just want to make sure that we're all going the right direction and just looking at commercial. And I think that it's a good idea to look at the rebate program with special criteria for, potentially for individuals. But I would just also I just am thinking and have had conversations with individuals as well about the fact that really everybody's hurting in this pandemic. And if you look at what the federal government did, reimbursing everybody, in this case, the way we're doing it here, really the people are subsidizing the businesses, which makes sense in that the businesses are closed, many of them right now, and cannot operate. But I just throw out there that we have, a real dire situation going on with a lot of people as well, not just businesses. And we have an opportunity to help a lot right now. I really appreciate what former Mayor Marbury was saying about protecting our balances, because it is like our savings account. But there's that, in my mind, I'm thinking of this balance of really providing the assistance to the community. It's not the answer, but it's an opportunity to help. And I just want to have that just thrown out there for consideration. It seems like council's moving in a direction, but I want to throw it out there for consideration because I think it's something we should think about too, about what the impact would be to the individuals if we included individuals as well, especially for water. Sewer balances, they're smaller. The other fund balances are smaller. I'm primarily talking about water. The other issue is that if we focus on the water for the individuals, it's not nearly as big. We won't be helping them as much because it's January, February, and March. For example, if it was July, August, and September, it would be a big difference. But it's something I think that I just want to put it out there for consideration for the team.
Well, thank you for that. I just wanted to make the comment that I'm super supportive of what we've been discussing, which is to evaluate the need criteria in the community. I think, from a broad brush perspective, if you're going to give something to everyone, it's more of a stimulus program. And I don't know that, this really provides that kind of mechanism to do that. And I would just say, I think, the need-based element of looking at what those criteria are and trying to provide that assistance in the community is sort of the essential need. And I agree with you that there's a lot of folks that may need that beyond the business community. I think we should look at that. But I think there's a lot of people who don't need it. I mean, a lot of the people that I work with in our businesses and so forth, I wouldn't think they would even want that credit at this point. Because their businesses are fine for whatever reason, or they work in a telecommuting environment where this is not the same level of financial crisis. And so to give up those funds out of that bank account at this juncture, I'm personally not prepared to make a decision like that forgoes an opportunity to do something for the community of a greater good. But I am interested in the helping on the need side.
Well, I appreciate that. And you said it well also, that I liked what you said too. That is a stimulus package. It is different. And that's not our goal here as much, but I just wanted to have the conversation and make sure that we, are intentionally doing it that way and doing it based on need. Because there is the other side of the argument. And the other side of the argument is, which I want to make sure we bring in Dirk on, is we have to make sure that it's fair, it's, and in alignment with regulations, stipulations, law. So I want to make sure that we're good there too.
And I would just jump in to Melissa's comment. Since so much of this is what I'm perceiving to be commercial based, I would like to know what the resident contribution would be in those months, based on last year. What would that be? Because there's some ways you could actually see it as a stimulus effort. I know when we all got the $1,200, some people just banked it, and some people said, hey, I don't need this, I'm going to put it out into the community. And so I'm going to spend it locally, or I'm going to give it to charity or whatever. Now, it doesn't mean that we're requiring that, but I'd like to know, to Melissa's point, what it is, the amount that might be reduced, particularly given a $13.4 million balance. I'm not as interested in the others because their balances aren't as high. And I see your point, Chris, about need.
Right.
I just think that there are people that we don't know that are in need, whether that's the the parent that had to quit their job to help with remote learning or whatever. I think that there's people in this community are impacted. If it's a low enough number, I'd like to at least see what the cost would be.
We'll ask Devin because she's going to know, but we did some very rough math, and as it appears that the revenues for the water fund in January of last year, and we're assuming that those would be about the same because we haven't had any rate increases. So that was 400,000 in total for the revenues for the water fund. So if you did 3 months, that would be $1.2 million total. That's all users. That's commercial and residential. So I'm guessing it's if the actual for commercial water is 879, then that difference, I think, I'm not sure actually, but I think it was we were figuring that it was about 1.2 million for the water for 3 months. Devin, is that about the right way of looking at it, do you think? We're looking at total water fund revenue in January of 2019 at 400,000.
I think, yeah, you could take the actuals and break it out. I would like to look at the same time and provide actuals to council if that would be okay, and send you guys a similar format based on residential, if that would work okay. So you have the specifics from last year.
I think that would be most appropriate. And kind of to move it along, Councilor Baxter said it initially that, we have a program in place. I mean, just so that anybody listening into this conversation doesn't think they're left out, they have absolutely tomorrow an ability to apply for financial hardship. If you are having one, please apply. We have money available to you today to do an extremely underutilized program. I think expansion of that particular program would serve those people that Councilor Noseworthy has identified and Councilor Youssef is talking about as well, and eliminates those folks that Chris Bettine was just talking about, that their businesses are doing fine, their families are doing fine. That's great. As opposed to an across the board reduction, I think is much more appropriate. So let those people that are having identify themselves, they're having a hard time. That program exists, and we can continue to find additional funds to support it if possible. But know that program exists today, and if it's overutilized, or then we can turn over another rock and find some money if necessary to reappropriate to fund that program. But I think this is a particular targeted program for businesses to make sure that they have a quicker recovery, that they have an opportunity to recover when we're through this. And so I think this concept to benefit businesses is what we suggested that we were going to try to do. And I think we need to implement it as quickly as possible, if at all possible, and suggest that staff bring us back the official program to implement.
And I also think, Dean, thank you. I think it's important we're thinking about these new projected fund balances. That doesn't include the thinking that Jose is going to put into the SURF fund and how that balance is so significant, and that eventually we may need to be putting money back into each of those enterprise funds that contributed to the SURF fund. So that's several $1 million. And so I think in 3 months, we may be looking at replenishing anything that we, again, to Kim's point, we still need to know what revenues were lost, but there's a possibility of replenishing any of the funds that we're using here.
That's exactly right, Barbara. And that's why I'm particularly not opposed to any allocation, but that to do what effectively is a tantamount to a stimulus program is really not our job right now. We need to take care of those identifiable residents of our community that are in extreme need, not a blanket across the board residential rebate program, in my opinion. So, but
I appreciate just the discussion. I think it's healthy just to have the discussion. I wanted to hear what other councilors thought. And I do agree that right now we need to be looking at our businesses. They are hurting and they need help. And this won't be the answer, but it will provide some assistance, and we're able to do it. I think it's a wonderful thing. I only wanted to just have the conversation as a council because I think it's important that we vet all of the opportunities right now, and think about all of our people, because that is who we represent. We do represent all of the people, but I think that we're on track here, and I think that we're making a good decision to start here, and really capitalize on that utility rebate program for others in need. So I appreciate you guys having the dialogue with me.
Absolutely. Good discussion. Do we have kind of a consensus to direct staff to move forward with this or come back with a more detailed program?
Let's move forward. I like it.
And find a way to have the contingency additions to the rebate program.
Absolutely, yeah.
Works for me.
Okay. Devin, does that wrap up this discussion? I don't know if you wanted to do a recap or we've talked about a lot of things, and I won't get ahead of myself this time and ask for and I don't want to call it done till it's done, but
Sure, no problem. And just to update council, Jared Biggs, our assistant utilities director, sent over the information while you all were discussing on the residential rates for water. And if every water rate were to be forgiven, it would be just under 470,000 for 3 months. So just so you all have that information. So thank you, Jared. And I will do a quick recap here about what we have talked about regarding our relief efforts. And so we will look to provide some additional clarity around the utility bill forgiveness program. The restaurant delivery fee reimbursement is live. Sounds like we'll look to do a potential order on that one. Jose, did you want to talk at all about the Durango Cares campaign or Durango Cares Save Our City forum?
If Tom is there, I'd like to kind of pass it off to him. There was a couple meetings that he was, I got to only being part of it, and he was finishing it up. So I think he'd have a little bit more information as I was bouncing around to a few different meetings. If Tom, you're there, and you can just join us here for a few minutes and give a quick update on where we are on that PR campaign. I know we had a meeting this afternoon. I was able to be at the first half of it and then had to jump off of the URA. And then a little bit of an update on the Save Our City forum, I think would be really good right now.
Yeah, sure. So we are moving full steam ahead at this point. We have finalized our agenda items, and we have clarified with Stacy Bowe that we're going to have the panelists who include not only city councilors, but Dirk, if you're available, and Police Chief Brammer. And then we've got Dave Woodruff lined up on the restaurant side, along with Tim Walsworth on the business side. And we're taking, I think, some great pains to emphasize to participants, this is really focusing on the restaurant relief efforts that the city is undertaking. And we're trying just to essentially get some feedback on how it's going, what's working, what's not, and what we can improve. So if all goes well, we will be open for some feedback from 11 till 1 on Thursday.
Constructive feedback is kind of where we're also looking to, and have talked with with the associations and the members of the associations of really harping on, we'd like constructive feedback. This is a solution-oriented meeting. We do understand that there is some personal feelings, but we're here to listen. We're here to get some solutions, and that's kind of what the whole portion of this meeting was. So we've been driving that as well. Also, on our Durango Cares campaign, we've had a couple meetings with Verde PR of setting that up and beginning to get rolling. We're looking to really get outgoing around January, at the beginning of January, with the marketing materials, with signs, and with banners. And again, the main goal for this campaign is for us to do our part and encourage our parts so that we can get the numbers down, so that we can start going out of red, going into orange, yellow, and maybe even green as we can go through, because as we go through that, it frees up the businesses to begin to open up again. So looking at everything that we can possibly do to be there as a support for our local economy and for our neighbors.
Thank you, Jose. And Tom, that was 11 o'clock on Thursday morning till about 1 o'clock. And essentially, council's role is to listen and process some of the suggestions. This is absolutely an attempt to reach out to the business community to see if there's anything that we have overlooked in terms of an opportunity that can be offered by the city of Durango, I think is. And so Tom, if you could just kind of recap who we're reaching out for, who would benefit from participating in that forum, if I can.
So we have had Tim Walsworth and both Dave Woodruff are going to be sending out their notification. Essentially, it's just our news release that we have published today, but they're going to target it to their particular constituents. And then in addition, we do have a display ad, a small one to run in the Herald, along with a local brief in the Herald. And then we're going to also, of course, publish it on social media. But the target group really is going to be from Dave and Tim's efforts on those sides.
Jack Llewellyn also, Tom, sent it out to the membership for the Durango Chamber.
Okay, right. And Jack too.
Very good. Thanks so much for that update. And that was what I was going to ask Jose to help talk about a little later on. So we've thanks for perfect timing.
Mayor, may I ask Jose a question about CARES funding?
Sure, absolutely.
So as I look at this, I recognize that a potential response, depending on what the governor does, may be this 5-star certification program. And I think we're woefully staffed to actually evaluate or review on a regular basis the continuing certification of this if it comes through. And as we think about the funds, you put together a wonderful suggestion for how we use them. Do we need to look at reserving any kind of funds to help with a potential certification process through code enforcement or short-term hires to help either the city or San Juan Basin Public Health in an effort that the restaurants have been asking us to consider?
So that's a good question. We can't really reserve these funds because they have to be expended by the end of the year. So these funds need to go. I don't think we'll have an answer on that 5-star beginning with, but I do know that the county is receiving a second form of CARES funding from the state. And that would probably be one that we could work with within the county to help in reserving some of those funds for a 5-star program would be probably the better way or the way that we could go about it. Again, these funding has to be done by the end of the year. And so that's kind of why we're making sure that we're on a deadline to make sure that we've expended those funds.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you, Jose. And back to Devin. Do you have there we go. Your final slide.
Yeah, so just one more time for the folks listening, if you would like to contact the city regarding any of the relief programs, you can email D as in David, B as in boy, R as in Richard, F as in Frank at durangogov.org. And
Mayor, I've got a couple more questions too.
Absolutely, Chris. Councilor Bettine, go ahead.
I just wonder, there was a couple other ideas that came up in these earlier discussions about these efforts, and I hoped somebody might respond just to some of them. One of them was liquor licensing renewals, and the other was sales taxes as componentry to this. And I know you looked at everything, Jose, so I thought, there are people out there watching and listening who had made those suggestions. And by the way, one of the things about all of these pieces and parts is that a lot of this really did come organically to the council from conversations that we had with various businesses and restaurant owners and really suggestions that they made on ways that we could help them. But those were a couple other items that I thought you might be able to comment on at this time.
Absolutely.
If I might add to that, business licenses in general.
Oh yeah, that one as well. Sorry.
So we've looked at both of those. They're not out of contention right now. We just needed a little bit more time in kind of going about that process. The complications really with the business licenses, they're all due at this moment. And so we've received a substantial amount of the business licenses, and we've had some others that have been wanting to look to having those maybe forgiven. So we're trying to figure out a way, how would we process that? How would we go with those that have already paid? The business licenses, I think the maximum is like around $150 to $170 for the year. So we weren't exactly sure that that was going to give as much relief. We did look at the liquor licenses. I need to take a little bit more of a look on that. I was speaking with Amy. A significant portion of that fee does go apparently to fund our police department with some of those revenues. So I wanted to make sure I took a look at what that might do by kind of providing that off, specifically as we go into 2021, as we go into our budget, and this making up a lot of our revenue going into, not a lot, that's probably, but making a good amount of revenue for our budget going through and having going through this budget process. So those are two things that we're still looking at. We'll probably revisit and we look at it in January, kind of where that's going. It's just something that we weren't able from a staff perspective to make a solid recommendation of saying that we'd be able to go through that without it possibly coming back and maybe being a little bit more financially constraining than some of these other options that we've had available, but something that we are still looking at, sir.
Okay, thanks for the answer. And then I was going to bring this up under council reports and actions, but it really pertains to this. So if you don't mind, Mayor, I'm just going to add one more thing. And that is, I know that Kim Baxter and I had a conversation with the local bank this last week. And I know, Jose, you had a similar conversation with the same banker. There's a program out there for the edification of the rest of the folks on the line here that a bank could leverage city-backed dollars essentially to provide bridge loans to these same types of businesses that we've been talking about, to not provide the same kind of relief because it's not forgiveness, but some businesses might need that fund to be able to pay their mortgage, or to be able to pay their rent, or be able to pay their employees for a few months until they get to the summer when revenues start to perk up a bit again. And so as you're considering those items that we just discussed that are still on the table, I wanted to throw that one on the table if the rest of council felt like it was appropriate to look at that, because it does require a financial commitment on the part of the city to be able to essentially backstop the loss that those kinds of loans potentially require. So in other words, the city puts up, let's say it's $250,000, just to throw a number out there, and that provides $2 million of funds to the community, and the city potentially could lose that $250,000 or a portion thereof if everybody defaults, right, or a portion defaults. So it's just a program that I think we should also consider, because it's a piece that I think would be another tool in the toolbox.
Sounds like a good way to leverage.
Chris is absolutely right. We did speak with Kent Curtis from First Southwest Bank, and my understanding is that essentially the backstop is 3 to 4% of whatever the actual loans are. So if it were $1 million, it'd be $30,000 to $40,000. So that's a good leveraging. As Chris said, that's an amazing leverage point. The other thing that we talked about was the possibility. I know that a lot of the business owners are not interested, for example, in taking out a full $50,000 loan, because that's a full $50,000 they have to pay back. But if they had a $50,000 line of credit under this program, they would only have to use what they needed and only have to pay that back. So I think there's some huge potential here for down the road when they need that, as Chris said, that bridge between what we can offer in January and February, maybe March, and then getting into summertime. So I would highly suggest that we recommend to staff that they do some more research into this and see what the legalities of it for the city are, what the commitment would be, what the risk would be, et cetera, and so forth.
Yeah,
I would love to see that. I think sounds like a great way to leverage dollars. And again,
reminds me, Sorry to keep interrupting, but that reminds me of another piece of it was that because they're a community development bank, the funds, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, can be flexible in a line of credit, or as well, they're very low interest rates. So he was talking about 1 or 2%. They can delay the time of repayment. There's a lot of flexibility in this. It's not just your normal bridge bank loan. So I think it's worth a look.
Jose, does that mean you would have a staff member able to put together some scenarios and pencil it out?
As far as being able to provide the backstop, 3 to 4% backstop. Yeah, I mean, the risk is just the 3 to 4% that we have to put up. I did speak with him. I think it was early, maybe last week. Weeks are kind of bleeding into each other. It was something that he thought might now during the winter might not be really ripe as it would be kind of in the spring. And we would kind of go back and talk about that. But at that point, from what my understanding of the conversation would be, just the city putting up the $30,000 to $40,000, and then that's kind of our participation. We're done. That covers and backstops enough for them to go ahead and do their loans. There wouldn't be anything else required from the city. So at that point, I mean, we could definitely, as the spring comes around and seeing kind of where we need, identify some funds if this is what the council would like to take a look at and appropriate it for that use in the spring. And probably need to meet a little bit with Dirk just to make sure legally there's the maneuver that we're able to do to backstop it. But it is just that backstop contribution is the only thing that we would be on the hook for, so to speak.
What I'm hearing is it's more of a recovery program potentially than a immediate relief type of program.
He did believe that kind of just from what he was seeing that in the spring with kind of some of the economic factors that it would be a good time for some businesses that probably would be looking at to leverage and really kind of get themselves through. And so you're absolutely right, Mayor.
Yeah. What's a modest amount to lever some substantial funds if we flush it out? I think that's appropriate. So thanks so much. With that, I don't want to cut Devin short like I did once before, but if we're ready to move on to the next item, is there any further conversation on this or any final thoughts, Devin?
No, we are ready to move on to your next discussion item, which I believe is
12.2.4 on my list, which is a discussion and possible action concerning a resolution appropriating the funds for coronavirus relief fund, which we just talked about in detail. So with that, is there a presentation or just a document we need to look at?
Sure. So there's not a presentation. This is relating back to the funding that we're deploying. Originally, the amount was $732,437. This now includes the additional $300,000 that the county is looking to allocate to the city. And so I think we've talked in length about what the plan is for these funds. And so should council authorize that appropriation, we will move forward.
And I might add, it is the recommendation of the city manager to the city council that by motion, we approve and authorize the appropriation of the coronavirus relief grant application to the Department of Local Affairs. The wording there is a little elusive to me, but can you describe how the Department of Local Affairs enters into, or is this a typo?
So the city of Durango would be requesting the funds from the Department of Local Affairs. They're the state agency that's passing these funds through to the city. So it's on a reimbursement basis. We would distribute the funds and then request reimbursement from them. This is the federal money we were talking about, but it has become a pass-through through the state via CARES Act funding.
Do we want to be specific about what the actual dollar amount is?
The dollar amount's in the resolution.
Okay. Yes, it's that $1,032,437.
Excellent, thank you. Well, then I would make a motion that we approve Resolution 2020-53, appropriating the funds for the Coronavirus Relief Fund.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Maybe we have a roll call, please.
Counselor Youssef,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baxter,
Yes.
Counselor Bettine,
Yes.
Counselor Noseworthy,
Yes.
Mayor Brookie.
Yes, thank you so much. And with that, we have the next agenda item is 12.2.5, which is a discussion regarding the business utility bill rebate. Is this a repeat of a previous discussion this evening, or is this?
Yes, sir. We staff received the direction during the presentation, so we are good to skip this item if that's the pleasure of the council.
I think unless I see any further discussion on this item, we'll move on. Seeing none, we'll move on to council reports and actions. Would perhaps start with Mayor Pro Tem Baxter. Anything that you'd like to share with the public this evening or council?
I think, well, first of all, happy holidays coming up to everybody, since I think this is our last city council meeting beforehand. I know we have a couple of other meetings along the way, but I just wanted to say that. And I wanted to confirm if we had a date yet for our city council conversation about lodgers tax.
January, it's the first work session in January, which I believe is the 11th or 12th. It's one of those days, I believe, is what the council had talked about with lodgers tax to come back at the next study session. And it is the
12th.
The 12th. It is on the agenda for the 12th.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. And at this point, that's the only thing I had to discuss.
Okay. If you think anything else, we'll circle back.
Thank you.
Former Mayor Youssef, any thoughts you want to share this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, just a huge thank you to staff for being so proactive in regards to all that business relief funding that we're talking about. I just know it's been so much work and so fast, and you guys have just responded so well. And I just want to thank you guys for all of your efforts. It's been really, really great to see the teamwork behind this. So I had to just add that. I did attend the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Lunch and Learn today. I unfortunately got bumped off for the last 10 or 15 minutes, which was so unfortunate because these are really good sessions. I found the conversation so interesting and so insightful, and the discussion really quite helpful. I would encourage all of you to see if you can sign up for one of these lunch and learns. They talk a lot about this just inclusive practices and how we can best support and each other and people and allies and be allies for people and breaking down barriers. So anyway, I really just enjoyed that. And I wanted to thank Sandy Irwin and the core team for all their efforts in setting those up for city staff. I also wanted to follow up on the email that we got from Leanne at San Juan Basin Public Health regarding the 5-star certification program. I found it really interesting. I'm trying to find that email, which I don't find right now because I have too many things on my desk. But that email basically said that it laid out the framework where we can start to take steps as a community if we're interested in starting to explore setting up this program. And I wanted to express my support for moving in that direction. I know that there's going to be still a lot of questions to be answered, including funding for staff to help for the implementation of the program. I know the Chamber and BID are also talking about that, but I did want to follow up on that from Leanne and see if there was council support for moving that forward. And I also want to bring up the emails that we're getting on Lake Nighthorse. And I would just suggest there's been some, we heard a public comment on it today, and we received some, and at least one email, might have been the same email from the same person a couple times. But I did want to just suggest that any process that we go through with Lake Nighthorse for any change of those days, it was such a thorough process the first time, that I think it needs to be very carefully vetted through that same type of process, public process, advisory board process, and inclusive of community input. The graphs were helpful to see, but it doesn't, I just really appreciated the process that we went through the first time. So I don't want to make a whole bunch of changes without really being inclusive and giving everybody the opportunity to comment on that, including our advisory boards. So that was all my 3 comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Melissa. And Councilor Bettine, any thoughts for this evening?
Yes, I want to second the thanks to the staff for this relief package work. It doesn't go unnoticed. So you guys were in the middle of budget prep and year-end stuff and all that stuff. And here we come to you with this myriad of requests that are complicated, and you've delivered. And I just want to tell you, one of the board meetings I was in today, I won't say which one or who, but somebody in the board said, the city can't react to any of this stuff or help with it because they just can't act fast enough. And they said that before I got to present the things that I thought we were going to do tonight. And nobody said that after I read off my list. So I just want to say, thanks. It was a big list, and you guys just did a ton of work to get us there. And I appreciate your responsiveness and taking all of that so seriously, so quickly. So thank you for that. I had a chance to attend the Parks and Rec board meeting last week. I have one request that came out of the meeting from them, which is for the upcoming study session with the board. They requested of council that we have an agenda for the meeting, and if less than 4 of us are going to be there, they would like to postpone and find a time when we're better represented in the meeting. So I share that with you. And then I was at the chamber board meeting today as well, and they obviously are super concerned about all of the same things we've been talking about tonight, and really looking for as many avenues as they can to participate in helping the community. They've been a big proponent of this 5-star campaign, so they're very interested in trying to follow that. I did see that Jack Llewellyn sent out the distribution on our event for Thursday, a listening session with the community, and so they're trying to get folks to attend that. And they were very impressed to hear about the relief package that we've got going at this time. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Chris. Councilor Noseworthy.
Yeah, at the last meeting, I talked about the multimodal board meeting where we talked about the Animas View Drive speed limit, and also got a presentation from CDOT on their plans for this summer that involve a construction of significant medians along Camino del Rio 550. I've asked, and then when we had our council meeting with the multimodal advisory board, they really asked that we get that and share it. I have followed up with Sarah, who is working with CDOT, and we're trying to get that video that demonstrates what Camino might look like. And the concern with the multimodal, and I share their concern, was it was traffic car centric and didn't really address pedestrian and bicycle traffic along that corridor. So haven't dropped the ball. I'm still working on that. I also got a request from someone from Mercy to serve on their Southwest Colorado Opioid Overdose Planning Consortium. And I asked if they'd requested from other counselors, and were they requesting based on my background in landscape analysis and strategic planning, or as a city councilor, and they actually said both. So I did want to bring that up to folks. They requested, they've already started meeting. It is a planning group that meets once a month to really look at some planning of what this opioid overdose prevention plan might look like, and then we'll have a grant application around it. So the next meeting is January 11th, and I do need to get back to them. So if anybody else had a strong argument for serving on this, please, if you want to let me know, or if you're comfortable with me going forward, there's a combination. They were also offering a stipend, which I explained that I know I couldn't take in either case because I volunteer in the community and I'm also a city councilor. So there would be no stipend associated with that. So I don't know if you need to make a decision or just get back to me. I also went to the DEI today that Melissa went to, and it was a really good, it was a TED talk on how to be an unlikely ally, and then a discussion. So if you want to attend, you haven't missed it. There's also showing it on December 17th at noon. So there's a Zoom call for that. I also would like to follow up on the Lake Night Horse. I know that council actually was involved in the past with determining the number of days that actually went to motorized vehicles. It came out through almost a council decision. And I'd just like to argue or suggest that if we have significant numbers of people using this as non-motorized days, and that's the activity, then we probably need to look at proportionate use of taking care of that. So I didn't seem the request for a 7 to noon quiet time on the weekend didn't seem excessive to me. In fact, I'd support a little more times on Saturday and Sunday for those that work and want to get out and paddleboard. Also, Councilor Baxter mentioned the lodger's tax, and I was wondering, as a result of the URA discussion today and the plans to go forward with adopting that, perhaps we need a study session to just make certain council can talk among itself about where we're going. So I wanted to raise that, and Jose might want to speak with Scott and others if we need that before we go into a formal adoption of their plan in January. Let's see. And that's all I have. Thanks.
So Dean, if you don't mind, I just wanted to comment also on what Melissa and Barbara had said about Lake Night Horse. And I think one of the things that we have to remember is that when the original days of non-motorized were set up, we had no use data. We had no idea what the relative use of non-motorized versus motorized would be. And now we do. And it's significantly non-motorized use. So I do agree that going back and looking at it based upon our actual usage is much, I think it would be a good idea to go back and review that and take a second look at it.
It's more informed than our original decision making, for sure.
Yeah, and I just to clarify, I'm not suggesting. I'm just concerned that I want to be fair to the processes that we had in place, and I want to hear from staff, and I want to hear from our advisory boards. I just want to give people the opportunity to comment as well, and make sure that we're inclusive as we go through the process.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, with that, I might to circle back to Councilor Noseworthy on your request to be on the opioid group. I would wholeheartedly support that. I know a number of us are on various boards and commissions, nonprofits, not boards and commissions, but nonprofit boards and would totally support that outreach and their outreach to your resources as well. So I think that's a great opportunity for us to be more connected with that particular problem in our community. With that, I just want to wrap up a little bit. Melissa, did you have another comment, or you're just doing the hand thing?
No, I was just feeling on that. I was invited to attend the same, and I have been unable to respond even. And so I will, I think it's great, Councilor Noseworthy, if you follow up with them. And I think I will follow up. But if I need to, I'll bring it back to council.
Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that thought as well. Perhaps they need additional input from us. But in any case, yeah, I might be an honor, but it was fairly till we talk about the subject matter. But I was asked to had an interview on National Public Radio, NPR morning show with David Green. The topic was basically threefold: what's happening in your community with the Four Corners Nursing Facility. What are your ICU bed capacities? And lastly, how are you going to roll out vaccines in Durango, Colorado? So that was a pretty pointed discussion. They had done their research in terms of identifying the fact that they knew all about Four Corners Nursing Home and over 100 people, 80 some, at that point, 80 some tenants patients contracted coronavirus and 43 staff members. So that was, at this point, our largest outbreak in the community. And you can say, oh, it's just the nursing home. Well, that's beyond being a significant number of people. It's representative, as I discussed with him, of the level of spread in our general population of our community. It just doesn't happen in the nursing home. It is taken into the nursing home from those staff members, those people in our community that we all interact with, and infected that particular community. Similarly, we've had a recent outbreak at Hilltop House, and so we've got the larger percentage of the population at Hilltop House, over 30 residents at that one building are now infected, along with the staff fully engaged in with coronavirus. And so that's also folks that you've met walking around our community, engaged with, walk down Main Avenue with. And so it's just reinforces the need that our transmission control methodologies, just wear a mask, wash up, and can do social distancing. Just be careful as a human in our community, and that's how we're going to get through it. I always say the fastest way to solve the economic crisis is to solve the health crisis first, and we'll all be done with it. So the next question he had was, what are your ICU bed capacities? And we've been, since Thanksgiving, toggling between 95 and 100% full occupancy in our ICUs. We had that discussion again this week, and we are still at maximum capacity at Mercy Medical. So, and beyond that, their larger problem is staffing. So you can have all the beds in the world. We could convert Wayland Gymnasium into a COVID facility for surge, as was proposed early on, but simply we don't have medical staff to serve the public if that were to happen. So we are, from a medical standpoint, we are our max capacity right now, and with a spike that is continuing to grow every day. So I can't reinforce that enough. And then, so the panacea to all this is the rollout of the vaccine. And so now we have Pfizer vaccine and Moderna vaccines that have been appropriated to the state of Colorado, and then based on population, Durango, Colorado. And between Mercy Medical and ASH, Animal Surgical Center, we've got less than 500 allotments. That means only the most critical of our first responders, our medical staff, will be given the vaccine anytime in the month of December. It's hoped that the next rollout of allotments of vaccine will be allocated to us in February. So those folks that are still critical, people with old people, other medical providers, or urgent care providers, that will be the phase 2 rollout. And then those of us in the general public won't even probably have an opportunity to be vaccinated till early fall, or early summer, that being probably May. They wouldn't even put a month on it. So hopefully that as additional manufacturers of vaccines get approvals, that schedule can be upgraded, because my own belief was that we could achieve some level of vaccination through the months of February, March, and April, so that we could have a full open up our community and save our community for the entire summer season. With the current vaccination schedule, implementation schedule, it doesn't look like that will be the case. It looks like we will be, in fact, continuing masks and protocols throughout the summer, unless we get a faster rollout of our vaccines. So that's just where we're at. And so it makes all the things that we've done this evening to protect our businesses, help out our neighbors, our citizens in our community. We will continue as city councilors and as city staff to look for opportunities to help out in any way we can, because it will become a sustained situation for the next 4 to 6 months, it appears at this point. I wish I had better news, but that is really it. The unique thing about being on NPR was it was recognition that they were just taking Durango as a snapshot of a typical rural community and the problems we're facing. And we are not unique, but I think what's unique in our situation is the people, the protocols, and the commitment to get through this as quickly as possible. So with that, that's all I have. And it's been a great evening. It's been a great year. This is our last city council meeting for the year, unless we have an emergency meeting, which is likely between now and Christmas. But for those of you viewing in, this will be our last. It wraps up a pretty volatile year, if I might say so, as mayor, and look forward to a much better year next year. So let's all go have a great vacation. Be a little less social than you were last Christmas, and look forward to seeing you next year. With that, I'll adjourn this meeting, and thank you and good night.